What's going on right now in the media is not going to attract a lot of new fans to rugby, and a few of the casuals who jumped on board for the Rugby World Cup, they're going to find it quite hard, I think, to continue keeping up with the game, because there's so many negative stories going on right now. For those new to this channel, my name's Max, I'm the host over here at the Black Jersey, and though I'm on a bit of a holiday, I did promise to continue making videos on breaking news pieces, and, well, this one here I think probably counts as breaking news. A massive thank you to my patrons as well. Today's video, it's about how Owen Farrell is not going to feature in the 2024 Six Nations, potentially not going to feature in the mid-year test series that England are going to play against my own country, New Zealand, and maybe he won't even play for England again. You know, this is really sad news. Owen Farrell, I've said this many times on my channel before, is hated for the same reasons that Richie McCaw was hated. These days, I can still find comments where people are crying about Richie McCaw being a cheat. People are saying that Richie McCaw didn't deserve a lot of his accolades. Simply put, Richie McCaw is one of the hardest working players to ever play the game, and that's why he's the greatest forward to ever play the game, apart from Sam Whitelock, who's now recently overtaken him, in my opinion. Richie McCaw worked so hard behind the scenes, he worked so hard on the pitch, he did a lot of research on his opposition, he was always striving to get better, and I see so many shades of McCaw in Owen Farrell. No player in English history has reached more points than Owen Farrell. He is the second highest point scorer of all time, he is one of their most capped captains of all time, he is just an unbelievable talent who has faced a lot of adversity throughout his career, and he became just the third ever England player to reach 100 test caps, so he's deserved a lot of accolades himself throughout his career. But Farrell, as the statement we're going to show on the screen says, has decided to take a break from international rugby in order to prioritise his and his family's mental well-being. This means he will not be available for the selection for the 2024 Six Nations. I've also got a quote straight from the source from Steve Borthwick as published on England Rugby's Instagram. It says, "It is with typical courage that Owen has made this decision to open up. Together with all of us at England Rugby, I will do everything I can to ensure that he has support he requires going forward." So clearly, a lot of the hate that Farrell's got from trolls, a lot of the mainstream media hit pieces on him have finally started to take a bit of a toll. Now, Farrell's got a bit of a reputation for making a few high tackles. He's got a bit of a reputation as being arrogant, and a lot of people have compared him to David Beckham. But the problem is, Owen Farrell, as we scroll through his Instagram, as you guys can see, he doesn't really post a heck of a lot. It's mostly just ads, things of the game. That's basically it. You don't see a heck of a lot of him with his family. You don't see him on the red carpets. You don't see him at these celebrity parties like guys like James Haskell have done in the past with, say, the royal wedding. Owen Farrell is simply just a competitive person who's really just a guy who wants to win. Owen Farrell is very similar to me, very passionate but never arrogant. People these days, I think, confuse a lot of arrogance for just people who are passionate. Just because someone wants to have ambitions, they want to achieve well, just because they know they're good at something, it doesn't mean they necessarily think they're better than everybody. These are the same people, I think, who are actually just trying to get better at everything. This doesn't mean that you're an arrogant person, and the fact that Farrell feels that, you know, he doesn't want to play for his country, this is really bad for rugby. This is why I've given the video this title, and the sad thing about it is that this comes just, you know, days after the whole Tom Foley incident. Wayne Barnes was pretty much forced into retirement by my countrymen, making abusive comments towards him. As I outlined in the World Cup final analysis that I made, he basically did nothing wrong in that final, and yet he was forced into retirement by all the abuse. The TMO Tom Foley, who was on the officiating panel for that game, he's also faced very similar abuse to Wayne Barnes. We can see the headline from Planet Rugby. It's, well, stuff I'm probably going to blur out. World Cup final, TMO reveals shocking threats. Abuse of match officials has unfortunately become a common theme in rugby union in recent years, with Wayne Barnes, one referee who has highlighted the growing problem. Now, fellow Englishman Foley is the latest official to confirm his own issues with online trolls, some of whom wished that his family would pass away in a dreadful car accident. Now, this is not acceptable. I've, in several videos in the past, said, this isn't cool. I've made several Instagram posts about how mental health matters, because it does. And yet, these poor players, poor coaches, poor officials, they just get flooded with all this. 2,000 threatening posts is the highlight for the next paragraph, the headline for it. World Rugby recently announced that 2,000 public online posts from 1,600 different individuals had been made against match officials on social media over recent weeks. Foley has since lifted the lid on the personal attacks he has been subjected to following the Rugby World Cup final, which included abusers even emailing his children's school. What do young children have to do with their father's profession? Say, okay, I'm just going to make the scenario up in my head. You watching this video here, your father is a doctor. Your father fails to save a patient's life. If this happens, would it be okay for the patient's relatives to message you on social media, you personally watching this video, and say, oh, you're a terrible person, I hope the same happens to you? But no. No bad thing justifies another bad. Two wrongs don't make a right. He says that they were direct threats, he told the Two Locks and a Cox podcast, against you, your family and kids. Things like, I hope your family pass in a dreadful car accident. I'm going to hunt you down and open up your throat. Most of it you can take. A lot of it is just from keyboard warriors. But when they know enough information that it could be a problem, that's where it gets worrying. Absolutely spot on. My children's school even had an email. It's a tiny minority. Think the millions of people who watch the game. It's still a tiny percentage, but the problem is, how are we going to get people to referee? The sport as a whole is going to suffer. As a referee, you're going to get grief at some point. You knew officiating a World Cup final between two teams who had been so successful, you were going to get grief no matter who won or lost, and that's exactly the point. Regardless of whether the Springboks or the All Blacks won, the referee was going to get blamed. Rassie Erasmus, I have no respect for him because he's a repeat offender. He repeatedly undermines the decision-making of referees, while Ian Foster himself came out and had a cry that the ref cost the game by citing this over here by Quagga Smith. As we can see, there is no ruck performed, so Quagga Smith clearly isn't off his feet. He's allowed to have his hand on the ground because there's no ruck. And yet with coaches like these egging on the trolls, it's no wonder this stuff is happening. He says that neither of us understood the level. It has gotten worse in the last year. World Rugby, to be fair, have been proactive, getting a company involved to screen everything. We send them everything that we get sent directly. They do investigations which can lead to prosecution, which is awesome. Foley, a referee for over 20 years, has called for social media users to have provided identification that can lead to them being traced if they abuse anyone on a platform. You can't hide behind this faceless facade. It's cowardice, he told the BBC. They wouldn't say it to you in the street, so why do they feel they can do it online? Exactly. And the really refreshing part about Owen Farrell being forced to take this break, it's all these comments here, so many people just sharing their support for Owen Farrell because, he needs this. When Farrell is struggling, he needs to hear from people like Charlie over here. He needs to hear from people like Jack over here. He needs to hear that he is supported, he is loved by his true fans. Players, coaches, refs, they're humans, guys, come on. Ian Foster, I've been a huge critic of him the whole time, but not once have I ever said anything personal about him because, simply put, they're just trying to do their jobs. That's why we need to try and keep things about their performance, not them as a person. It's why I basically never rate players below a 4 unless they get a card in a game and I'm doing player ratings over on my website. That's why I typically reserve all the lower end ratings for players who get carded during matches because they're humans, they make mistakes, things happen, they could for all we know get a 3 out of 10 one week, be an absolute amazing performance 9 out of 10 the following week. World Rugby, I think, is doing their hardest to stop the abuse against refs. All of the unions I'm aware of, they're doing their best to stop this, but ultimately us as fans, we need to continue this behaviour that we've seen in this comment section. We need to continue the trend that this has started here and continue to treat the players and the coaches and everything like humans. The refs in particular, if you don't have referees, you don't get a game. That's why I've made videos about that before. That's why when I had Ben O'Keefe here on my channel as a podcast guest, we discussed, the things he'd faced as well, because this needs to be talked about. Rugby is a sport that is definitely kind of starting to lose touch with its values. We don't want it to end up like football where, you know, people are having fights at games and everything. We want to bring it back to rugby values, the values everyone grew up on. All the ref abuse, all the player abuse, it's just getting ridiculous, man. And it's no wonder that I myself need a holiday with all this burnout. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. I just do have one more video that's planned coming out for 2023. The top 100 players in the world, the full list all compiled. I'm going to be coming back in 2024 with a lot of new ideas, so definitely make sure you subscribe to me and definitely comment your support for Owen Farrell in the comments section, because as the title says, this is a dark day for rugby. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you later in the next video. Really appreciate it. Cheers for watching from Max.